Good evening. Radical618 here with episode 5 of Therapy Thursdays. Tonight we're going to be talking about boundaries and the importance of boundaries not only in our personal lives but also the importance of boundaries for mental health professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, counselors, etc. So I know that boundaries gets talked about quite frequently when it comes to our personal lives, especially when meeting with therapists, but I think that our being mental health counselors, our boundaries don't get discussed very often, and people don't often realize the importance of boundaries for mental health professionals. So, as always, please remember that while I am not, I mess this up every time. Please remember that while I am a mental health professional, I am not your therapist. This segment is to provide psychoeducation on different aspects of mental health. I am not providing advice for specific situations. Please do not share your personal details about yourself. Please do not expect me to provide therapy services. Thank you. Now, the reason I read that is because I don't want people to get the wrong idea about the type of segment that this is, what I'm doing here. Everything that I tell you is some information that I gather through my experiences as a mental health counselor, information that I find on the internet, such as the information we're going to go over tonight, and so on and so forth. Hey, Deadly, how's it going, man? Thanks for stopping in. We're going to talk about boundaries this evening. So, last time, for those of you who were in here last time, I had this screen up where I was just talking about Mass Effect for a while, and I had the chat box, which is over here. The text was white, so I got a recommendation to make it darker, so I did that, and now you guys can hopefully better see chat. I know that you can see chat, if you're looking at a screen, but sometimes on mobile, sometimes people choose to have chat not showing. So if you want to be part of the conversation without opening your chat box, I make it available to you over here. So before we get started, and I should have done this before I started talking, I'm going to just do the thing here on Twitter and let the world know that we are in fact officially live. So give me un moment. That's not a circle. There we go. I hope everyone's having a really, really good Thursday. I had a pretty okay one. I had a headache, and I still kind of have one, which sucks, but it's not bad overall. Now you guys might hear someone in the back room, or in the background. My boy's in the house playing some Sea of Thieves with a friend, so if he starts yelling, that's because he's pirating. So just keep that in mind. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started talking about boundaries. First and foremost, I want to sort of define, and I know I'm not looking at my phone, I'm doing one other thing. I want to define what boundaries are. Which I will do. So, boundaries. Okay, so personal boundaries, and I am reading this off Wikipedia, but it's important. Wikipedia is not always a great source, but usually they do have really good info. So, personal boundaries are guidelines, rules, or limits that a person creates to identify... Oh my gosh, it cut me off. Hold on. Personal boundaries are guidelines, rules, or limits that a person creates to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for other people to behave towards them and how they will respond when someone passes those limits. I do not like this song, so I'm skipping it. So, boundaries is a wall, a good wall that we build around ourselves to make sure that we are keeping a safe distance between all people in our lives. Obviously, the boundaries that you set with your parents are going to be different than the boundaries you set with your siblings, are going to be different than the boundaries that you set with your romantic partners, your friends, etc., etc. But sometimes creating those boundaries and knowing how to create those boundaries can be very difficult, and knowing when to implement those boundaries can also be very difficult. So a couple weeks ago, I was sitting in the office of my supervisor, who is someone I've mentioned before, who is helping me get my licensure for mental health counseling. And he had, let me cover his name. He had this Psychology Today volume, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a segment on boundaries. So the title of this article is The Power of Boundaries, Learn to Set Limits. This was in the December 2019 volume of Psychology Today. I actually have it here for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and read through some of it. What I should have done is I should have gone through and highlighted some of the things that I wanted to make sure we talk about. But we're just going to go through, and I'm going to breeze through and pick up on some of the content that I want to make sure we cover. So this first page here says, the power of boundaries. Sharing personal information brings people together and helps them like one another more. I'm sorry, I'm struggling today. I have a little bit of a headache. But in an age of self-disclosure, how do you know when you've gone too far or when someone else has ulterior motives? So the thing that really attracted me to this article was that first sentence there, which was in an age of oversharing. So we are definitely in an age where people are starting to feel very comfortable with sharing a lot of things about themselves. And while that's great, and I definitely think that everybody should feel comfortable sharing things about themselves with whoever they want, there's a time and a place. That's part of the reason I want to bring this back to the importance of boundaries for mental health professionals, as well as boundaries in your personal life. So, in a world where oversharing is almost wanted by most people, I want to know about you. I want to know about who you are, what makes you you, why you are. There's a time and a place to tell me different things about you. And I'm not talking about you being my client, I'm talking about you being a person who I'm speaking with. So this article, starts with, this guy did this study. I'll read it. It says right here, this classmate went around the table to share what they'd be discussing. So every classmate said that they wanted to talk about a little something. One client wanted to talk about their racist father, an S&M relationship that had gone bad, an abusive boyfriend. Then this Tom, someone who the writer of this article was interviewing, was about 15th or 14th in the group, had planned to write about learning to draw. And then he said, by the time it got to me, I realized this was not the class I'd signed up for. And as the day went on, I increasingly felt, oh my God, this is way too much. So he was in an essay writing workshop, and everyone took the opportunity to talk about way more than they should have been talking about in an essay writing workshop. And so this guy realized, all I want to do is talk about writing. I don't want to talk about this guy's racist father, this person's relationship gone bad. So he realized, wait a minute. When did we become a society where we can't realize the right and wrong ways to set boundaries and talk about ourselves. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. This is online. So I'll plop the link in chat. This is a article that I found in the Psychology Today magazine that you have to have a subscription for. But I just actually Google searched Psychology Today boundaries and the article itself popped up. So if you guys want to follow along on your own device or you want it for later, you can click that link and I'll take you right to what I'm looking at. So here's a nice paragraph that I like. So we live in a time of I'm falling apart today. We live in a time of unparalleled personal expression. Long-lost coworkers and high school acquaintances daily invite us to their homes and in their psyches. And by that, presumably, I think this writer means through social media. Traditionally marginalized groups are speaking out, which is great. Victims are confronting abusers, which is great. Addicts are owning their past, which is great. And the freedom to speak your truth and give zero Fs brings a lot of benefits. But it can also lead to some thorny questions, like how much we should reveal about ourselves and how much we should want to know about others. So I'm going to stop here with the article and I'm just going to talk a little bit about boundaries. So there's definitely been times in my personal life and in my professional life where I've found my boundaries being pushed. And people have wanted to know more about me than I was willing to tell. Maybe previously I was more naive, so I was willing to give people that information. I was willing to say, yeah, oh, you want to know about my family? Sure, I'll tell you about my family. You want to know about my personal history, the things that I've experienced? Yeah, sure, let's just go for it. You want to know about my romantic history? Yeah, let's talk about it. You want to know about my relationship with my parents? Sure, let's go for it. So, building boundaries and recognizing who to talk to and when to talk to them is something that you learn. It's something that you cultivate. It's not something that you're born with. You're not like coming out as this infant being like, yeah, dude, I know to talk to you and I know not to talk to you. And I know that setting up a boundary will help me with this relationship and will help me learn how to better maneuver this one over here, but will not really help me with this one. So I got to set up a whole different type of boundary. So setting up boundaries is something that is not easy. It's something that is learned. If you're someone right now, you might be listening or watching live saying to yourself, I'm really bad at setting boundaries. I get asked something and my entire life story just flows out of my mouth and I can't stop it. Well, you may have to take a look at information that you can find on the internet, talk with a therapist, talk with a professional and say, I can't set boundaries. I can't tell the difference between this person who I should not be telling this information to and the person who does need to know. If I told everything to even my best friend that I told to my romantic partner, that wouldn't be good boundary setting. If I told everything I told to my best friend to my romantic partner, that wouldn't be good boundary setting. So in our personal lives, we have to recognize, what do these people need to know? What do my parents need to know that my fiance doesn't need to know? What does my fiance need to know that my parents really don't need to know? So it's really just about recognizing what's the benefit of this conversation, who does it benefit, and why am I giving this information to somebody? Why? Why is the question? So, as you continue to create new relationships in your life, platonic, romantic, professional, etc., recognize, what does this person need to know about me? When do they need to know it? And why do they need to know it? Those are, those W questions that we've been learning about since we were kids. Those are great questions to apply to boundaries. What do they need to know? When do they need to know it and why? Where, I could say, maybe where could apply. If you're becoming good friends with a coworker, it happens, we're humans. Maybe discussing some of those more, personal details about yourself at work is not the best place to do that, but you could do it in a more personal setting, even though you're a professional, you know this person on a professional and personal basis. So again, in a world where we are giving so much information out about ourselves, What I'm quickly going to do before I get back to the article is talk about what I just talked about, but instead of setting boundaries personally in personal life, I want to talk a lot right now, and probably later as well, about therapists and other mental health professionals setting boundaries with clients and the reason we do it. So something that I've started implementing into explaining what therapy is by saying that, therapists, we're here to talk about all of the things with you about you. We're here to be that third party to allow you to explore your thoughts and process your thoughts in a way that allows you to talk with somebody who's not in your life every day on a personal level. So many times the boundaries from coming from a client are there's much less boundaries coming from a client than boundaries that a counselor is giving back to the client. And that's because while we as therapists cultivate relationships with our clients, we are cultivating professional relationships with our clients, despite the fact that the clients are giving us a lot of personal information. So even though we cultivate these relationships, I, as a therapist, am not your friend. I've had a lot of clients who I've said to myself, in a different world, maybe I would be that person's friend. Maybe that person would be somebody who, if I met them at a convention or if I met them on Xbox, maybe they would be my friend. Maybe that would be someone who I was spending time with in a more personal, fun capacity. But that's just not the case. So when a therapist begins to cross those boundaries, and I'm not talking about anything, I'll talk about the ethical implications of romantic relationships with clients, which is, spoiler alert, the ethical implications are you don't do it. But when the boundaries start to blur, when a therapist starts treating their relationship with a client as a friendship, and the communication starts to become less professional, less, therapeutic, and more friendly, a lot of things begin to happen for the client, even if the client doesn't recognize it, and a lot of things start to happen for the therapist, and the therapist usually does recognize it. So there's a reason that therapists, when I talk to my clients, I'm friendly. My clients know I have parents. My clients know I grew up in this area. My clients know that I have a brother. But they don't know the things about me that my friends would know. They don't know the things about me that my parents know, and they certainly don't know the things about me that my partner knows. So keeping a professional boundary with clients is important, as I said, for a lot of different reasons. I would say most importantly, the ethical implications, and the ethical implications are the reasons that we can lose our license, that we can no longer be able to practice mental health therapy. So, dual relationships is the more technical term that we see in our ethical handbook, which means that we are engaging not only as your therapist, but as some other type of role in your life. So that could be a friend. In instances that should not be happening, that could be a romantic partner, which I certainly hope not. But that could also be an employer. That could be a supervisor. That could be a lot of different things that could, and the reason why we keep our boundaries so firm is because we don't want to hurt the client. I'm going to change this music, which I really like, but it's throwing me off. Okay. We don't want to sever that therapeutic alliance, that therapeutic relationship that we build with our clients by adding another role into it. If my role is to be your third-party professional individual who's here to help you process your thoughts, who's here to help you set goals, who's here to help you reach those goals, I don't want to mess that up by becoming your friend. I don't want to mess that up by becoming your employer or by hiring you to do something for me. I don't want to ruin that, because my job is to meet with you at our designated times, sit with you for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and talk to you about, are you reaching your goals? How can I help you do that? What's the next goal? Let's process how these things are going. What can you do to make it better? And as soon as we start adding, the personal Rachel into it, the counselor Rachel is all like, whoa, hey, you're going to mess up my jive here, dude. Like, personal Rachel, you're great, but, counselor Rachel has a job to do. There's speckles of personal Rachel and counselor Rachel, but personal Rachel is not here to be a friend to my client. Professional Rachel is here to be a support to my client. I'll probably come back to talking about boundaries for mental health professionals or as we continue. But I do think that gets brushed over a lot. As I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, boundaries gets talked about a lot because everybody needs a boundary with everybody they come in contact with. But and boundaries get coupled with mental health counseling a lot, but it doesn't often get talked about by why do mental health professionals need a boundary with their clients. There's also other types of boundaries that mental health professionals need. We need boundaries from our job. So, we talk a lot about burnout. With any type of job, there's burnout, of course. With mental health professionals and other types of professionals in the medical field, depending on what populations they're serving, there's a lot of burnout. And if we allow our professional life to bleed into our personal life, that's a bad boundary, I tell clients, I probably overshare with my clients to an extent, but I tell my clients who come in and I say, hey, what are your hobbies? And they say video games. I talk to my clients about video games. And I say, oh, that's awesome, man. What do you play? Oh, I play this, that, whatever. Oh, I haven't played that. I played these games, etc., etc. But if I were to let some of my work bleed in to my personal life, I wouldn't play those video games. I would sit at home and worry about the status of my clients and, want to make sure that they were okay. But I have to, when I close my office door, when I leave the office for the day, my work stays at home. Or it doesn't stay at home. It stays at the office. Hold on, I need some water. I'm fading faster. My work stays at the office. Not always. I'm a human. I'm not perfect all the time, even though I'd like to be. But I have to keep that boundary. Work is work and home is home. Have to keep that boundary. Now that can be true for many people as well. Who aren't mental health counselors. Many of you watching or listening may have jobs, and you might feel the same. When you leave work every day, you might find that you're done. You close that car door. It's 5 p.m, and you are like, what job? I don't have a job. I will not have a job until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. That's a great boundary because you're not even worrying or thinking about that. Now, some of you may have jobs that require you to be alert and on call, if you will. And that's a little bit different. There's a different type of boundary that you need to determine, how do you want to set that boundary? What does that boundary look like for you? So, there's a lot of different boundaries that any type of professional, mental health professional or otherwise, that we need to maintain so that we don't burn out, so that we don't, this is related to burnout, but so that we don't lose the love for the job, so that we are able to have a home life and enjoy our video games and enjoy our family and, take time for ourselves and self-care, like what we talked about a couple episodes ago, and being able to do all of those things too. So, So anyway, that's kind of the skinny on boundaries with mental health counselors. That's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to boundaries. But the dual relationships thing, the dual roles thing is really important, and the keeping work at work is important too. And I think that gets lumped with burnout so often. But also it's a type of boundary. Leaving your work at home is, oh my gosh, leaving your work at work and not bringing it home with you. That's a boundary. That's a skill that people sometimes have a tough time learning. So I'm going to read this part here. And again, you can follow along with this. I posted the link in stream. If you'd like me to post it again in chat, rather, I can. But I do have it here for you too. So each of us tries to erect a boundary around the parts of ourselves we want to keep private or at least shielded from those with whom we're not intimate. Some people are more vigilant about raising those firewalls than others. However, which can lead to discomfort, if not open conflict, because it's harder to keep others' revelations out than it is to keep our own within. We think about boundaries as self-oriented concept. This is my boundary. But it's not just a matter of what you're willing or not willing to say. And this is a really important piece when I was reading this. I remember it was kind of almost like a light bulb. It's also what you're willing to let in. So that's super important. Now I'm going to take the therapist out of this, because as a therapist, 99% of the time the information I'm being given by my client is something important. There's been a few times when I've had clients in my current job say things that are just so from left field that really I can't do much with in my given role, that I say, look, I'm going to have to stop you right there. That's something that I need you to bring up, or I don't usually say need, I encourage you to bring up with your mental health therapist, because if you guys remember, in my current role, I'm a counselor, but I'm not providing mental health counseling in the particular role I'm doing every day. Kills me. So I often have clients want to sort of go the direction of mental health counseling with me in my current role, and I have to sort of maneuver through, okay, what is appropriate for me to go to talk to this client about, and where do I have to say, you might want to save that for your therapist, or can I connect you with a therapist so that you can discuss this in more detail? But anyway, I love this. So also, what are you willing to let in? So this paragraph says it wonderfully. Eventually, it does get easy to say, man, I'm just not going to say it. I'm just going to say to myself, man, that person doesn't need to know that, and I'm just going to take this information and plop it back here, and if it needs to come up at some point, maybe it will, and if not, then that person just doesn't get to know that information. What's harder is the information that people give us that we don't want, that we do not need, and that we get, and we, at that point, the boundary is broken. We are hearing and receiving information from people that we just don't want. It's hard to say no to that. Sometimes you don't know it's coming. Sometimes, you haven't had the experience of being like, whoa, this person, I can already tell is going to give me way too much information. How do I put a boundary up quickly and with respect, so that this person doesn't give me more than I want? Because it's okay to not want that information. Sometimes because we live in this, hey, Maniacs, how's it going, man? Sometimes because we live in this environment where it is okay to share so much information, other people have a hard time knowing when it is and isn't okay to give more information than we want. Hey, Tristan, thanks for stopping in, man. Appreciate ya. Okay, so I believe now, if I remember, the article moves into talking about how to set those boundaries up with people who are giving us too much. So in healthy relationships, romantic or otherwise, Bakarova, and I didn't say her name before, but that was the person, Mariana Bakarova is a psychology researcher at University of Toronto, and that quote before was from her. So in healthy relationships, romantic or otherwise, Bakarova says, we attune ourselves to others' boundaries by making gradual, what she's calling bids of trust. For example, on a first date, you might confess that you had a tough day at work because your boss was snippy to you. If the other person doesn't say anything back, chances are you wouldn't further extend. Bids of trust are lessened when there's no reciprocity. You're suddenly not safe with this person. Hey, Volcasmic, how's it going? Thanks for stopping in, listening to me ramble about boundaries. But it's a good ramble because boundaries are important. So I really like this idea of bids of trust, and you guys might be thinking back to a time, when I was on a first date, or the first time I was meeting someone, and I sort of, put myself out there and made a comment to see if they would respond. So that's what this psychologist is calling a bid of trust. So they kind of gave a great example. I don't want to go much into it, but basically what she's saying is that this is a way that people can already tell what's that person's boundaries like, I want this person to know what my boundaries are like, where I'm willing to go with them, and if they're not going to respond, then, maybe, okay, I'm going to take it back in, or it's just not going to be the right fit. So again, I'm just going to read through right here, and make sure that I'm just sort of giving the information that's helpful. So I do like this, and it's because we're humans. I'm a big person who believes that humans are social creatures. You can fight me on that if you don't like it. Here's the rub. We like telling other about ourselves. I'm sitting here doing a podcast because I love hearing myself talk so much. That's half a joke. I also want to make sure people get good information. I love talking. I love telling people about myself. I love hearing about other people. And that's because we're human. We're social beings. We like being around other people. We like having people to connect to. But as we're going to continue to hear, and as you're going to continue to see, people also don't like talking to you about you that much either. So talking about ourselves is fine. Knowing the best way to talk about ourselves is a science, and it's a skill. Being social with other humans seems like a bad idea. Tristan, yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I should have known. Actually, as soon as I was saying that, I was like, Tristan's going to come in here with some witty comment about hating people. Tristan works with me, guys, so I don't really know that it's good that he hates other people. Also typed it in the chat room. At least you're truthful. Put yourself out there. That was a bit of trust, seeing if anyone responded. Well, Casmic responded. She thinks you're funny. And now, there you go. Okay, so when we are first getting to know each other, we find the encounter most enjoyable when the extent of self-disclosure is balanced. As I kind of just mentioned, on a first date, the guy who talks about himself nonstop may be an unappealing candidate, but then so is the woman who only asks questions and never shares anything. So effectively, when you're on a first date with somebody, it's nice that if the person you're on a date with gives and asks as much information as you do. So that's the ideal. It's kind of like that movie 500 Days of Summer. Expectation, reality. So we expect, hopefully, that the person that we're going on a date with or meeting for the first time will be as interesting and as communicative and as provide as much disclosure as we do. Obviously, that's usually not the reality. The natural inclination is to reciprocate and can backfire, however. So this woman, Angela J. Thompson, was initially happy to meet a woman named Sarah at a Chamber of Commerce event in Jacksonville. Both had gone through contentious divorces with abusive men who had cheated on them. Sarah knew this about Thompson because she had published an account of her ordeal. I just got totally distracted by this quiz that says, how high would your rank have been in World War II? See how far your luck and guts can take you. Anyway, that distracted me. Okay, so Sarah knew this about Thompson because she had published an account of her ordeal in an anthology about women rebounding from setbacks. Thompson was, in fact, doing well by that time and running an assessment management company. She was glad to have an opportunity to share her advice and experience, but then Sarah started grilling her with questions like, do you think your husband cheated because you gained weight? And how often did you have sex? Not questions that you typically ask somebody the first time meeting them, in my personal opinion. Shocked in the moment, Thompson says she answered her. It was almost over before I really started questioning myself. I just wasn't prepared. So because, if somebody asks me a question that I'm not really expecting, but because we sort of have this natural interest in responding to humans when they're asking us about ourselves, we're all of a sudden giving away like, yeah, he did leave me because I gained weight, or we didn't really bang that often and so maybe he was upset about it. Or you're answering these questions that, yeah, they might be true, but why do I want to share them with this person I'm meeting for the first time? It's a trap. Are you saying human interaction is a trap, or just this particular thing? Okay, so people who score high in the personality trait of agreeableness are particularly susceptible to this type of boundary blindsiding. They're more likely to accept someone oversharing and to share in response because they don't want the other person to feel in the wrong. Oh, the quiz link. Yeah, I'm not clicking it. I just thought that it was kind of interesting. Oh, here's another one. This guy doesn't look like he's very high on the World War II ranking scale. So I remember this quote standing out to me as well. So, if you're somebody who wants to make people happy and you want to make sure that, you are meeting their expectations and, they're asking you a lot of questions and providing a lot about themselves. And even if you don't want to be, you say to yourself, oh, they're doing that, so I should do that too. Let me follow up and just, give this information that I probably normally wouldn't give, is something that shouldn't happen because you don't have to do that, but happens so often because of how we react to one another socially. And this is a little bit of a self-disclosure, but this is not a professional forum. It's a personal forum, if you will. I'm like that. I tend to be someone who's like, all right, we're doing this. We are oversharing. I'm here for it. Let me give you this information. And then sometimes information comes out of my mouth and I see it float away and I stand there and I watch it. And the person who I just gave that information to is like, why? I didn't want that information about you. That's just silly that you would give me that information. So it's totally natural reaction, but just because it's a natural reaction doesn't mean that it's a pleasant reaction, and it doesn't mean that it's a pleasant experience, especially if you don't want to be sharing that information. The amount of pieces of information that have come out of my mouth directed at my parents about things my parents don't want to know about is astonishing. I could write a book, and I don't want to, because now that's more information that I don't want people to know who aren't my parents or the 3 other people who I did want to have know that information. For those inclined, Bakarova recommends practicing the skill of being just a bit disagreeable, allowing an awkward silence to hang for a few moments, or declining to answer a prying question. Hold on, this song is making weird sounds, and I'm going to the next one. Okay. So this not only protects your privacy, but enables you to get some important information about other people. If their reaction is not particularly kind, that will teach you something about whether you can engage in difficult conversations with them. If they validate your feelings and apologize, you'd be more likely to trust them. So, she that spells it out right there, but if you're someone who's agreeable and you find yourself giving away more information about yourself than you would like to, practicing being disagreeable and practicing putting up a small boundary may help you recognize, okay, this type of person is going to be trustworthy and this type of person is going to be less responsive to me asking for that boundary or initiating that boundary, because you shouldn't have to ask for a boundary. You should just be able to say, meh, I'm not doing this with you. And I liked this paragraph a lot too. As a woman particularly, I used to hear things when I was a teenager that, if I were to engage in intimate type relationships with dudes, all the dudes would huddle together and talk about it. And all I've really learned from being an adult is that whenever many females do anything intimate with their partners, it's us that actually talk really in depth about it. So when I read this paragraph, it kind of light bulbed for me, similar to the other paragraph I mentioned. And I realized that I do tend to be very open. Like, I will listen to anyone tell me things, which I shouldn't always. But I'll listen to most people tell me anything that they need to get off their chest. And I will also tell people things that they probably don't want to hear. So spoilers, I have terrible boundaries. That's why I go to therapy. I actually go to therapy to work on my boundaries. That's one of the goals that I've been working on for quite a while. And I've gotten better. So, okay. Danielle Jackson has close female friends, but would sometimes feel uncomfortable when they when talk turned to their sex lives, they might gab about it or make a joke. They'll divulge and ask questions about me and my husband, not to be nosy, but just because we've had a glass of wine. So I've learned to just say, girl, I'll talk to you about a lot of things, but for some reason, I protect that. That's just my thing. And the next paragraph goes on to state that by making her need for privacy her thing, Jackson keeps the conversation from devolving into shame or blame. If you say, I'm sorry, but that makes me really uncomfortable, you've created an awkward situation where they, the person who's talking to you, scrambles to recover. But if I say, I love you, but I just don't talk about that, I can actually create an interesting conversation. So I like that all these people are from Florida. That's really dope, because that's where I'm at. So it's almost like owning the thing, not being ashamed of the thing. If you're someone who wants to keep that private, 99% of the time people are going to be like, okay, yeah, sure, sure. I'm going to talk to her about it now, and you can sit there and be like, great, I'm going to get all the scoop. And I just don't want to talk about my personal thing. And by making it your own, by accepting it, and by not feeling shame, you can set a pretty good boundary, and then, like she said, that makes an interesting conversation. I did mention that I go to therapy to sort of work on my communication skills and setting boundaries, because I'm kind of like that. So like I feel like if I can't share something, I feel ashamed that I can't share it, where it's more of like I want to feel like I'm owning the fact that I'm choosing not to share it because it's my information. So me not wanting to share it and choosing to not share it feels way better than being like, oh no, if I don't share this with you, then I'm not in the club. So it's hard. It's not easy, especially, for most of my life I've been an oversharer. That's an interesting lens to see that through. Yeah, I read that too, and I was like, that's really, really good, because when as an adult, when you take a step back, you kind of realize that nobody cares about you that much. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you do. People care about you, but like, if you're not like being mean, if you're just kind of being yourself and staying in your lane and owning who you are, people love that. If hey, I'm Rachel, I talk a lot, and sometimes I make inappropriate comments, and that's okay. People are gonna be okay with it. I'm not gonna force them to be happy about my inappropriate comments. Tristan, sorry about some of those jokes today. But I can recognize my flaws, I can recognize my strengths, and I can say, here is me, and this is what you're gonna get because I'm choosing to let you get it. So I really liked that too. I was totally into that. So this section is called Dreading the Office. Let me just read through again and see. This might be related to work. So this actually talks a little bit about like letting your professional life bleed into your personal life. I've talked a lot about this already, so I think that I'm just gonna skip through it a little bit. I do like this here about how she was sort of letting a coworker kind of take over her life and pushing way too far into her personal life. But I did. Oh, I know, man. I'm just saying it because I'm on stream. I just want to look good for the people. So thanks, Tristan. Shout out to Tristan here. Tristan 10 UK. He's the coolest Brit I know. And what more can you say about him? Carry on. So this person believes her former coworker was just needy, but sometimes colleagues have more insidious motives. They might want to push you to divulge your own grievances about the boss so they can use that information against you, or they might be priming to dump their work on you. I'm not going to go through the full list, but again, this is just building the skills of recognizing what does giving this information to somebody do for me? When is the right time to give information to somebody, and why am I giving it to them? If Jenny comes up to you and asks you for some piece of information that's completely out of left field that you wouldn't normally share with her, it's probably a moment where you can say, man, I'm just not gonna, that's not really something I'm gonna be sharing with you at this moment. It's not easy to do that. I think I'd probably, me saying that just then was like, yeah, what, wait, maybe I should tell Jenny this piece of information, and Jenny's not real. So it can be really difficult to feel comfortable pushing someone away. So, and then this whole section, yeah, this was really good too. So when guys open up, I'm definitely big on men and women being equal and experiencing the same thing. And certainly, everybody in between, man and woman, being, we're all humans, right? So we're all equal and we all experience very similar things. But, for individuals who are, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so for men, men and women are different in the way that they respond to things, the way that they feel about things, etc. So this whole section was just about how, I think it was both about how to set up boundaries with men and then how men can benefit from setting up their own boundaries, and how they respond to setting up boundaries in different ways. So I'm personally gonna skip this section for now. Like I said here, I'll put this back in the chat. This should just post. You guys can, of course, have access to this. Like I said, I just Googled it. You don't have to have a subscription, to my knowledge, and you can just read this. It was interesting, this portion about men, but I don't know if it applies like as much as I'm just talking more broadly about boundaries at this point. And then again, mom's on Facebook too. So I think that this was something about like moms posting too much information on Facebook. One of the topics that I want to discuss as part of my segment at some point is the internet in general, how it affects our mental health, but also just like humans have no idea how to use social media and the internet, even though we've had it for so long, and why that becomes a danger. It's like one of my favorite topics. So then, yeah, that kind of like sums up this particular article. But I really liked the more broad stuff about boundaries. I know we talked a little about the coworker stuff, but that's because I talked about it before. But these earlier pieces of like the what was that called? The bids of trust, I think is super, super important. I think in the future that's something that I personally would apply to with my clients. And I also really liked the idea of owning your privacy and being okay with not sharing too much information about yourself, and being okay with doing that, especially in a society where we are encouraged to share so much about ourselves. So that was the information that I had on boundaries. And like I said, boundaries is something, it's kind of a weird topic for me because it comes up a lot with clients, especially in the forum that I work in, because I'm trying to help clients find employment. Some of our clients have never needed to create a boundary. Some of our clients, they don't have great boundaries with their parents because their parents have been taking care of them. And some of our clients don't know how to interact with employers. So talking to clients about boundaries is definitely a skill I have as a therapist. But as personal Rachel, in my personal life, it's a skill that I'm still building myself. So I really wanted to break down boundaries. It was awesome that my supervisor happened to just like have this sitting in his office. He let me borrow it, so shout out to him. And yeah, so that's kind of my spiel on boundaries. So Volcasmic writes, and look, it's black now over here, so everyone can read it. It's not white. Boundaries are tough stuff sometimes. I'm currently in an uncomfortable situation at work where I divulged a personal thing to a supervisor, and now I'm dealing with the ramifications from that. Yikes is all I'll say. Yeah, no, totally. It's a really interesting topic today, and thanks for sharing. Of course, I think, first of all, my goal is to pick topics that can be discussed broadly. As I mentioned at the beginning, and I'll post this again just so everyone can see it, since there's more people in here now. I'm always here to psychoeducate and just provide people with good information. I tend to be on the boat that Psychology Today is pretty good information. So if you're getting something out of it, that's really good. It definitely seems like I could see that you were interested in that portion about owning your privacy and being comfortable with your privacy. But yeah, and you guys might feel comfortable establishing boundaries in different environments differently. Like I said, I'm good 90% of the time at establishing a solid boundary with my clients. I'd say the areas in which I most struggle with setting a boundary with my clients is when they're around my age. They play video games. I look at the clock and I'm like, man, I'll give this dude like 5 minutes to talk about a video game, and then like 20 minutes later, we're into the lore of Destiny 2, like having a fight over Hunter mains versus Warlock mains. It happened once. It was really funny. And we're human, right? So we're gonna meet somebody. I'm meeting real life living people who are awesome and going through their own journey. And when you have a connection with them over something you're passionate about, it's hard to say let's not talk about that, because the other side of it, as a therapist, I'm trying to build that therapeutic alliance. Hunter main is better, obviously. Yeah, oh, for sure. He was trying to give me that Warlock BS, and I was like, listen, I will transfer your case if you say that to me one more time. And there was laughter and etc. Off. Oh, for sure. Deadly. One of these days, we are going to play some Destiny 2 with Volcasmic. I used to play a decent amount with her back when we were in Dames of Destiny, in Destiny 1. So one of these days we're going to get with her on PC and do the thing, just so you know. Volcasmic, Deadly is a super awesome dude who I've recently become pretty good friends with. He's in my current clan, and he's the bomb.com. He's tremendous. He's like, blows my mind. So yeah, cool. We will do it. We will do the thing. So anyway, you guys might find it easier, Volcasmic, for example, like, you might find it easier to set, now that you've had this experience at work, you might find that setting a boundary with your employer or with other people at work is easier because you've had this shitty experience. So, sorry if you can hear, it's him yelling. So, you might say, you know what, this time I'm just going to say, oh, no, I'm just going to, or, you might choose however you're going to set up your boundary. But you might still find that setting a boundary with people outside of work is maybe still hard, and maybe you want to do that, but it's harder because you already have shared a lot of information, or you feel comfortable, but you're like, man, I don't know if I want to receive as much information from them. I don't know if I want to share as much information as I had. So playing around with how you approach different environments and setting boundaries may feel different. So, there's people who I work with. I joke a lot with Tristan here in chat, but Tristan and I have a really nice friendship at work. He and I take time out of our very busy days to talk about video games, sometimes to talk about even the political climate, just different things, and we have a nice conversation. But there's times when Tristan has said to me, like, I don't really know if I have much to add to this conversation, and I've said to him, like, I think I'm gonna stop here, A, because I have work to do, and B, like, I just don't have enough information to contribute, etc. So but then, like, of course, there's lots of Star Wars. The only time Tristan and I really struggle with the Star Wars conversation is when I remind him about how much I love Attack of the Clones. It's a little complicated because I tend to be the polar opposite of you. That's funny. That's probably why we're friends. I'm pretty private and guarded about that, so it might be tough for me to open up more about, yeah. And so, one thing that this article didn't discuss is, and honestly, I don't hear this talked about very often. I'm sure there's a lot of literature on it, and I might even do a little bit of research now. And just, because this is how this works, right? As we expand the discussion. How would I even word this? I don't see it talked about a lot as expanding your boundaries, if maybe, breaking down the wall. And I don't mean like, you're this person who's, wrapped up in this 10-foot concrete wall and you don't want to talk to anyone or do anything with anyone, and you have all these things that you don't want, but just like feeling more comfortable with breaching the boundary. So let me see. Oh man. Let's see. If you set a boundary, expect to deal with anger. 3 essential ways to protect your personal boundaries. I think I'm going to need more time to look this up, but I can sort of give you my hot take, which is, it can definitely, just like it can be almost scary and feel, like you might be betraying somebody by setting a boundary. And I know maybe for you specifically, Volcasmic, that might not be the case. For me, as I mentioned, that's very much the case. It's hard for me to set boundaries with certain people. With some people, I'm like, never talk to me again. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not giving you personal information about myself. But for most people, I tend to be pretty naive. I tend to be, I tend to give everyone benefit of the doubt. So yeah, you want to talk to me? Let's talk. Let's do it. But my hot take on feeling more comfortable with relinquishing those boundaries, honestly, if you were my client and somebody came to me with like, I want to be more communicative, I want to be more open about myself, I would like, first and foremost, I would recommend making sure that you're open with yourself. The topics that you're wanting to talk about more openly with people, are you able to accept them and be open with yourself? And then also like role playing. Honestly, my nose is itching. I'm sorry, everyone. Role playing, practicing with a mental health professional if you have a therapist, of course. But then also like practicing with somebody who you trust, almost with just about everything, and just having them portray someone who you think you might struggle with boundaries with not sharing enough, and you'd like to share more, and then you could sort of practice what that feels like. That's my hot take. I think that would be really awesome to look up. I don't know if I worded my search right. So if you give me some time, I might do a little bit of research on that and let you know what I can come up with, and then maybe I can find something that would be helpful. But that's a great conversation that really is piquing my interest. It's an excellent point, being open with yourself. And if I'm being honest, the uncomfortable feelings I'm experiencing in my own situation are insecurities it brought to the surface. Yeah. And I grinned a little bit there because I was like, well, that's my therapist brain. it works. So yeah, and I'm not going to, of course, what are they? Like, I'm not going to do that to you, of course, but that would be where I would start. Is just, you have to be comfortable with the things that you want to talk about before you are even able to talk about them with other people. It's the same concept of you got to help yourself before you can help anybody else. You have to implement taking care of yourself before you can reach out and take care of somebody else. So yeah, do some exploration, some self-talk, some exploration, and see if you can maneuver through those insecurities on your own. If you can't, if you're not seeing a therapist, there might be a therapist out there who can help you maneuver through those insecurities, and then maybe help you feel better about being more open with yourself and with others. So thanks for sharing that. That's I know this is kind of a weird forum sometimes to share that stuff, even in a vague way, but thanks for sharing, and hopefully some of the information that we talked about tonight has been helpful. So yeah. So I think that I do have a pretty good headache. I think I'm probably gonna, unless the conversation keeps going, I'm gonna keep an eye on chat for a couple minutes here, but I'm gonna probably tone it down. what I do want to talk about a little bit is the next couple. Hey, no problem. I'm here every 2 weeks talking about fun stuff. Actually, that brings me into what I was gonna say. And for real though, I keep really like, is Volcasmic on today? Like, I'm super stoked to catch up with you in game. I remember gaming with you, and you were like so awesome and like also insightful from your end. And I know we didn't even play that much, but those times that we did, I was like, yo, this chick rocks. Um, so the next couple streams, let me see if I can pull up a calendar. Okay, so I don't really even need November. I need December. Yes, I'm so sorry. Work has been crazy and I've been super introverted. Hey, oh man, I don't, Tristan, are you still in here? Work where we work has been absolutely bonkers. Like 4 o'clock hits every day and I'm like, I'm still here. I'm still working. I have an hour and 30 minutes left and I can't see anymore. I feel like, the building is collapsing. Like, I feel you. Work can be a monster. So seriously. But yeah, so once all of that passes, the shenanigans will be epic. Yeah, you just keep me updated, man. I'll be around. I am loving Destiny 2 on PC. I'm so grateful to the Bay for this rig. Like, it's amazing. It's so beautiful. I said yesterday I was playing with Deadly, and I said at least like 4 times, I was like, Destiny 2 is just beautiful on PC. Like, I can't even deal with it. Yeah, today, 4 o'clock rolled around and I was off it. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you were in there with Morgan and Jess for a while, and I was like, he is donezo. I just like went in my office and sent like 4 emails over an hour, and I was like, okay, we're calling it quits. I just heard a yell from downstairs. Okay, so I'm so glad you're having fun. I made the switch at launch and haven't looked back, except for when cross save went live and I can go back and forth between Xbox One and PC. Yeah, so I didn't have a PC at launch, like, at all, so I could not make the switch, which is fine because I have a really, really, really dope clan that I play with now, and like everyone's super awesome and amazing. Then when I had the other PC, I was like, I'm gonna get it. Like, what's the difference? And then the PC didn't have enough storage, so I couldn't even download the free version. I couldn't even download New Light. And then when this PC came around, I have like 4 terabytes of storage. So I was like, and download. Okay, thanks. I could have sat in my office, but I wouldn't have accomplished anything. I feel you, dude. Like, there's times when I definitely am like, I'm not even going to sit in my office right now because all I'm going to do is sit here and make myself, like, cross-eyed when I could just go in and, like, chill with Morgan or Jess or, you know, whoever. So, cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is bring up this calendar right here. So, it is the 21st of November. I just said, I don't even need this. So it's the 21st of November. Next Thursday is Thanksgiving here. And then I would normally do my next stream on the 5th. Now, I might still. But what I was thinking, what might be fun, you know what? I probably will still. So, fine. So I'm going to do a stream on the 5th. I haven't decided the topic yet. There were a few topics that I know... I could go back and look. I think one was maybe on exercise. Now I have the internet one that I've been thinking about. But of course, if you guys have anything that you want to hear me talk about or hear me give information on, or we could talk about, in stream, please let me know. You can always, Tristan, you could let me know in person. You guys can always DM me or hit me up on Discord, whatever. You can always let me know. So I am going to do the 6th episode on Thursday the 5th at 8:30, but then we're going to do a special edition just of the stream in general on the 12th, because that is the Game Awards. So I know you guys might be watching on your own, but I think I'm going to. I've always wanted to do this with some sort of event. I had my PC when E3 was going on, but E3 was like kind of it was like not really great this year. So like there were some really good things from E3, but I was just like, nothing was really hyping me up that much, so I didn't do it. But I think for the Game Awards, I'm gonna co-stream it. So I'm gonna have it on. I'm gonna be in the corner, and then I'm going to just sort of have my live reactions. We can sort of have a cooperative chat about what's going on the Game Awards. So I've never watched a Game Awards anything. It's fun. I love Game Award stuff. I love conventions and all of that. So like, I really do like E3. Like PAX I'd love to go to PAX. PAX South is the weekend of my wedding, and I like literally the other day I was like, I'm so bummed that I'm getting married during PAX South, because it's in Atlanta, so it's like super attainable for me. And then also, like, I don't know, Volcasmic, if you've done this. Tristan, I see your comment. But like, watching competitive video gaming is so thrilling. I don't play Overwatch very often anymore, but watching the Overwatch League, like, even if I only watch for like 5 or 10 minutes, is so enjoyable. I think it's so dope. At GuardianCon 2017, they had a Crucible tournament, and it was like the top PvPers at the time. So 2017 was right at the end of Rise of Iron, before Destiny 2 came out, and like Dr. Lupo was there, and like all of these like top tier PvP players, and I was sitting in this audience of like 2,000 people, and it was so fun. I couldn't even like deal with it. The one from GuardianCon 17, it was amazing. Yeah, because they were live streaming it. So if you like really do enjoy watching video games, check out, I don't know if you played Overwatch, so when you haven't played Overwatch, watching Overwatch League can be a little weird, but like competitive video games, just like the atmosphere is just absolutely so much fun. Anyway, so watching it would be a little weird. One time, my dad is so cute. Listen, my dad has always been really good at being like, if you want to like share what you like with us, we'll like check it out. That's how I got him into watching Gilmore Girls. And my dad loves Gilmore Girls. But like, we were at his house maybe like a year and a half ago or so, and nothing was on TV, and I was like, Dad, the Overwatch League is on like XD, if you want, like the Disney Channel. And he was like, yeah, if you want to watch it, sure. So my brother was there too. My brother plays Overwatch with me, and we were like watching it, and like we were like cheering and like, like making noise at like these like boss plays, and my dad was like, it's moving so fast that I don't even know what's going on. And so my dad has this huge like 85-inch TV, and so like I ran up to it, and I was like, running back and forth like this is the one team, and then this is the other team, and then like right now, like this character is like, it's going to do its ultimate, so like this is right here. And he was like, I still don't know what's happening, but he was really good at just being like, yeah, if you want to put it on, you can put it on. It's so much fun. I wish that Destiny like had enough of a dedicated PvP, like to have like truly competitive, like a professional league, because Destiny, that moment, that like hour at GuardianCon that year was just, it blew my mind. Oh, for sure. The problem is, and I'm gonna spiral for a second, and then I'll get back to the point. The problem with Destiny 2, and Deadly, feel free to chime in. The problem with Destiny 2 is that because they support PvE and PvP, they can't. Oh no, you're fine. We're done with the boundaries. So, because they have to accommodate for both PvE and PvP, they're never gonna have like a solid PvP, weapon like situation, because like, if Randy's throwing knife is super good in PvE, let's say, like I know Recluse came out and it was a Crucible weapon, but then people realized how good it was in PvE, and that's all they were using, so they're buffing it. But that affects the way that it performs in PvP, so like they're never gonna have this like solid PvP thing, where everything in Overwatch is PvP, so like 99% of the time. So not only is balancing a problem, but you're also gonna segment the player base. Yeah, and they don't want to do that. They want players to play Crucible and play Gambit and play and do raids and do, you know, planetary stuff. And yeah, absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Tristan. So anyway, the 12th, I'm mostly sure that I'm going to be doing a co-stream of the Game Awards. I'm pretty sure we're allowed to do that. I think that's one of those events that, like, since it's being put on Twitch, like, you can just sort of capture it and stream it yourself, stream it alongside it. So if Volcasmic, if you want the experience of watching a game show award show, or a game show award show, a gaming award show, I will be live on my channel, and then it'll be sort of like the Rad Alliance. I don't think Jesse's here, but I'm so proud of Jesse for that recommendation. But the Rad Alliance is going to get together and watch that. And so then I would be back the 19th doing the episode 7 of Therapy Thursdays, and then so on and so forth. Obviously, January is going to get a little nutty because that's when I'm getting married. But December, the 5th, 12th, and 19th, I will be live. I don't know what time the Game Awards starts, but I'll go live when that goes live. And then, of course, the 5th and the 19th, live at 8:30. So, on that note, I do think that I'm going to end here. I also, like, forgot that I had the shirt that someone got me, like, years ago that says Rad on it. So, I'm just going to... This could be the Therapy Thursdays Rad Alliance shirt from now on. So thank you guys so much for the conversation. I super appreciate it. It's a lot of fun when there's conversation. And every time I do this, things feel smoother. I took a mental note for something in this stream, and I'm going to try and apply it to the next one. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. Tristan, I will see you tomorrow. Volcasmic, I look forward to. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It goes like in and out. I think it's because of the weather. Volcasmic, I cannot wait to play with you soon. And I'm always here if you ever just want to like pop in and say hey. And Deadly, if you're still lurking, you are the man. You don't have to respond or anything. But I know you were in chat for a while, so cool. All right, guys, I'm gonna fade out to black here. And I will talk to you guys soon. See you on the 5th for our next episode of Therapy Thursdays, the 12th for the Game Awards, and then the 19th again. So catch you guys later. All right. Have a good night. Maniacs, I see you there, man. Thank you so much for the bits. I don't think anything is going to pop up because I went to the other screen. But thank you so much. I see you, and I will catch you on the next one. See you later, man.